Hi-de-ho neighbors, Radio Goji here, and welcome to Squeeze the World Toys. I know it's been a while since I did one of these, and it hasn't been as regular as I would have liked. Unfortunately, long story short, there are some changes going about on the channel in the near future, and I'm not going to be able to do these as regularly as I used to anyway. But fret not, for today we have a special episode, because today's episode is all about Soundwave. Soundwave is a character in Transformers you probably have heard of. He's one of the more popular of the Transformers characters, as it turns out. He is kind of like a second in command to Megatron in G1. And he's very popular due to quite a few factors, actually. One of them being his iconic, robot effect voice done by Frank Welker. He has that kind of personality that goes with the monotone robot effect. Very cold, calculating, all about logic and whatnot. And his goals are to serve Megatron in any ways he possibly can. Very much quite the contrast from Starscream, who is a traitorous, backstabbing jerk. So, either way. Another major thing that sets Soundwave apart from other characters is his design. Now, unlike a grand majority of the Transformers characters, especially the Autobots that came out in the first wave of Transformers figures, Soundwave was not based off of a Diaclone figure. He was based off of a microchange figure, and thus he, has the appearance of a life-sized household object or item. And in Soundwave's case, it was a micro cassette tape deck. And the toy that I'm showing off here, that I've been showing off here, that I've been holding, is, while it's not exactly the original G1 toy, it is close enough. This is actually a reissue in the Classics line that is very much based off of the original G1 toy. For all intents and purposes, it is mostly the same toy. It just has a little bit of a modification. Well, I mean, not done by me, done by the company. A bit of a design modification that I'll get to later. Now, being that he is a microcassette player, that does mean that there are microcassettes that he comes with. In fact, this particular one came with 2. And another thing that set this and later on Blaster apart is the fact that these microcassettes were also robots in and of themselves, or at least these 2 are animals. This is Laserbeak and Ravage. But they would hide out in the cassette compartment, and then they could eject whenever Soundwave needed to go around and do stuff. He was very much an espionage type of guy, and the cassette robots. I mean, for one thing, when they're in their alt modes and everything, they are, even in the show, life size. Like, this is about the size that Soundwave would have been in his alt mode, but they can grow into robot size, and the smaller cassette robots are actually about the same size as humans when they're in their robot modes. Now, other than Laserbeak and Ravage, we've also seen, I did mention and did do a review of a Buzzsaw figure I say years ago. No, it was like early last year. But he also, but in the show, he mainly had Laserbeak and Ravage, and also 2 other ones named Rumble and Frenzy, who we'll talk about later. And there was also Ratbat, but again, we'll talk about him later as well. And he didn't come about until the movie in Season 3. So with these cassettes, they do fit into this little cassette compartment. So you can actually hit the eject button. Little cassette door will open up, and you can take them out of these little cases that they come with, and they'll just fit in there. Now, with this particular figure, you can actually fit in both of them. The original G1 figure only had space for 1 cassette. Later on in, I would say like the late 80s or so, well, I get this, Laserbeak has a hard time fitting in sometimes. I would say that during the late 80s, it was after the American cartoon was canceled, but there was like a repaint of a redeco of Soundwave with called Sound Blaster, in the lore and whatnot, it was due to events during the Japanese-only Headmasters cartoon. But Soundwave got another form that was black in color, and the toy was just basically different colors and had this double cassette door. So that was something that when they actually came up with this version of Soundwave, they wanted to bring that over from that particular design. We also got a bunch of chrome bits here that we'll be utilizing in some of the transformations. Let's go ahead and turn Soundwave into his robot mode. Well, actually, before we do that, I do want to show off some of the other details we've got here. We've got this little switch. Switch doesn't do anything, but you can move it up and down. And you've also got a little volume wheel. Again, it's not a real working thing, but you can spin it. So there's a lot of nice detail on this, is what I'm getting at. Anyway, you even also on the back, you even have a little battery door with little batteries in there. This will become important later. So let's get to the transformation, shall we? So first off, we're going to disconnect the sides of the tape deck. These are going to come down. They're actually going to fold all the way down as well. And there's some really nice chunky metal parts in this as well. We're going to flip these forward, flip out the feet. And there's some nice clicks in there. These two sections are going to disconnect and flip forward. We're going to slide down the hands. And then the head flips up here and just twist it around to reveal the face. And in the back, we even got a little belt clip. I just keep forgetting to mention these details, but anyway, we're going to take the batteries out. Just put the battery door back on. Now, one of these batteries doesn't extend or anything like that. This is just this one here. It's by itself. This will actually clip on to, there's a shoulder cannon. And then the other one will extend, and you can actually take one of these little chrome missiles, for lack of a better term with this one, snap that in, and he can hold that as a gun. So that's Soundwave in his robot mode. And he's very, you know, again, reminiscent of the original 80s toy. This is a reissue of the original 80s toy, and as a result, there isn't a lot of articulation with this. You can move the arms, you can bend the arms, but that's about it. The legs can kind of like kick up, but there's no proper knees. Like they don't bend. They can bend forward because of the transformation joint, but there's no real knee. You can't bend the legs back. Sometimes I'll like twist them out just to kind of give them a little bit more stability when he's standing, which looks kind of neat. But other than that, you can twist the head, and that's your lot as far as articulation goes. Now, as I mentioned before, the cassettes can also transform, and we've got Laserbeak and Ravage. So Laserbeak, just turn him over like this. You flip out the wings, and these little bits on the bottom will also fold down like this to make little feet. But these will just kind of slide out. And then here we've got the head. You got to slide the head out. This basically slides out and up. There we go. And then two of these little chrome bits are like little guns. And they'll fit into the little spool holes on the cassette part. And that is Laserbeak, who is my favorite of the two here. I've always liked the design of the cassette birds. It's just a thing with me. Now the only part I don't really like is how these little gun parts, these little rocket gun booster parts, are separate, and you have to like put them on separately. I understand that at the time they were just kind of getting into this, and you know, it's a new concept and everything, so they were working with what they had, and they just had extra bits that you put on. There were a lot of Transformers figures like this, like Starscream, for example. You had to like take his wings off. And I think like other parts in order to be able to transform him properly. Luckily, later figures of these characters would like integrate this stuff into the design, as we'll see later. But yeah, there's a Laserbeak. He doesn't really do anything. You can kind of fit him on the shoulder. It's not really that stable. But you can sit him on the shoulder if you want to. I'm afraid that's going to fall, so I'm just going to put him down here. And then we've got Ravage. Also, it just dawned on me, this figure also made an appearance in 10 Shots, 10 Bots, and I remember that now because Greg actually transformed Ravage for me, but Ravage can basically just unfold. The tail comes down like that, the head comes forward, and then just the legs kind of just fold out from here, just unfold. And then just for stability, I like to kind of offset them a little bit. There's even a little bit of graphics here that doesn't, you know, line up properly sometimes, but it's whatever. Just kind of get him into a more stable standing position, because he's very, very thin, as you can see. You know. And we're going to see other versions of Ravage that unfold in a more stable manner. Let's see if I can just... I guess that's good enough for now. And these little booster rockets, these will, again, fit into the little cassette holes. These will go on the back. Kind of give them a little bit of balance. That's Ravage. 80s Ravage, in my opinion, not terribly impressive. I don't know if it's just because I've gotten spoiled from other figures, but you know, he's kind of there. Overall, I do like the figure. Again, not a huge fan of Ravage. I usually just have Ravage just kind of stored in the cassette compartment. But Laserbeak I do like, and Soundwave is very, very solid. Very solid figure. So you know, for the time, a very good effort there. So that's G1 Soundwave, but like I said, we do have other figures that we're going to be looking at. Both of them are Soundwave figures. Now the next figure I have here is actually from not too long ago. I would say about 10 years ago, possibly. This is, I wouldn't actually say 10 years, but like 5 or 6, 7 maybe. This is Fall of Cybertron Soundwave. Fall of Cybertron, I don't remember if I've mentioned it before, is the video game. It was actually the second one, because there was one that was War for Cybertron, and then the sequel was Fall of Cybertron, but this is technically considered Fall of Cybertron Soundwave, as part of the Generations line. This was released with alongside the game, more or less. The game came out on the PS3 and Xbox 360, and I think the PC as well, and you really can't get it anymore. I don't think it's available even to download anymore, if I'm not mistaken, but either way, fairly decent game series. I enjoyed it, but Fall of Cybertron and War for Cybertron as well aren't technically considered G1. They're actually part of the aligned continuity, which means instead of... basically the Fall of Cybertron and War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, I should say, were basically the events on Cybertron. So you see Cybertronian vehicle forms and whatnot. But instead of going into the G1 cartoon proper, it actually goes into the events of, like, shows of, like, Transformers Prime and Rescue Bots and a lot of the shows that came up around that time, pretty much. I don't know exactly what they all were, but that's pretty much like the time frame we're looking at was those. I think the Cyberverse may also be part of the aligned continuity. I'm really not sure about that one. But yeah, so in War for Cybertron, instead of turning into a... I mean, he did kind of turn into a pseudo boombox mode, but his main thing was this kind of funky-looking nom-nom truck, which is what I'm going to call it because of, like, the obvious teeth here. Very evil-looking, if anything. I do know that they actually did make a blaster version of this. It looks very inappropriate on a good guy. But, you know, it rolls around as well. This actually has Toy Hacks Repro labels on there. a lot of these bits that are covered, I mean, some of these are just kind of added in, because one of the main things with the video game characters is that they had a lot of glowy parts on them. The Autobots had a lot of like glowy red stripes and accents, and the Decepticons obviously had purple ones. But, like, this was a completely transparent window, but I think it looks better with that sticker over it. It kind of gives the glowiness off a little bit better, if you ask me. Now, Soundwave still does have the whole cassette PAL thing going on. They're called deployers officially in this continuity, but he did come with Laserbeak here. Now, this isn't a cassette, obviously. It's a Cybertronian data disk, but he serves much of the same functionality. I'm just going to lay it face down like that because of something I'll get to in a bit. So, yeah, let's go ahead and transform Soundwave here. We're going to take the gun off the top here. This kind of folds up and kind of out of the way. These sections will basically make the feet. This actually slides up to get out of the way. My fault. I don't transform this very often. The feet will fold out, and then the legs will click down. These little wheel wells will swivel around. And then this whole section here is going to unhook, and if I can get it to, come down to make the lower torso. And the arms will unfold up here. These front wheels will go forward. This whole little front assembly here, that can just flatten down and hook there. This little roof, actually let's slide this back, and then like this and down, and that just kind of folds up and out of the way. This even kind of moves forward a bit. The arms will unhook and come up. Reveal the head as well. Let's get the arms in place here. These little panels will flip back. And then the arms, and then the fists will come out as well. Sometimes the fists get a little bit stuck. And there we go. And then the gun that we took off first thing makes a little shoulder cannon, as per usual. And this little back panel just kind of slides into place there. And that is Soundwave, Fall of Cybertron Soundwave. Not as... These days, I mean, I like the design. I've always liked the design. But these days I'm not as impressed with it as I once was. There's something about the simplicity of the original G1 design that I like a little bit more than this one. But this is still pretty good. The articulation is standard Generations articulation, so pretty much anything can move. It's just a little bit creakier because it's an older figure. And, like I said, he does have cassette PAL functionality, so as you can see by the very obvious eject button, the chest does flip open, and alright, there we go. I'm just trying to make it stable. Now the data discs, again, he came with Laserbeak. This actually, this back part that slid into place is actually connected to this little compartment. He can technically hold 2 discs in here, but I'm not going to really do that because they get stuck rather easily. But anyway, you kind of just put it in like this, face first. Let's try that again without me being clumsy. So this kind of just fits in like this, top side in, and that'll just push in like that, and then just bring the back panel in as much as you can, and that'll close up. And then when you want to deploy him, see if I can make a good presentation of this. Open up the back, and then just kind of push the back part in, and then he'll pop out, usually. But if he doesn't, let's just say he did. And usually what's supposed to happen is this actually has a spring-loaded button for an auto transformation on there. Blech. It'll hit the ground. There we go, and unfold. And this is Laserbeak in his little robot bird mode, which looks pretty cool. And you can just close this up. And he doesn't quite fit on his shoulder or anything like that. He doesn't even have little feet on the bottom. He's just kind of there. Now, there were other cassette pals that were released for both of these figures. I don't have any other ones for this guy here. But there were Rumble and Frenzy, and a whole host of other things, mostly birds. I know that the original G1 figure actually came with Buzzsaw, I think. But Buzzsaw was more prevalent in the comics than he was in the show. But for Fall of Cybertron, there were actually 4 other cassette pals released in basically 2 to a 2-pack. And I have all 4 of them right here. Now, they all come in these little CD trays. And these will all fit into the chest cavity as well. But this is Ratbat, actually. If I can just kind of get him to fold my hand there. As you can see, he's very much a slight retool of Laserbeak. Just, he's a bat, and he's in different colors. Ratbat is not one we see very often these days. Again, he was very much a Season 3 guy, and made his debut in the movie. But we do have, I will admit, this is probably my least favorite of the discs because of how much of a pain in the butt he is to get back in shape here. This is Ravage. And Ravage kind of partially transforms with the spring-loaded stuff. You actually have to manually move the hind legs into place and kind of flip the tail out yourself. But he's a huge improvement over the original Ravage back there. It looks really cool. Also, I should probably do a better job of unfolding things. And then lastly, we have Rumble and Frenzy, who are the 2 humanoid ones. And for those of you who are curious, I am of the camp that says Rumble is blue and Frenzy is red. That's just, I'm more of a cartoon fan, so that's just how I am. Although I am very much aware that all of the modern toys try to pass off the red one as Rumble, but I know better. Anyway, here's Rumble here. I think this was actually passed off as Frenzy before, but in this case, but he's Rumble in this household. So let's unfold him a bit. And you do still have to do a bit of transformation. You got to fold out the toes and bring the arms down. There's our Rumble. And he can stand very easily. Might be a little bit of... There we go. And then Frenzy is the exact same mold. So you can just do the same. And it is easy to get these back into their get them back into their discs, but letting them stay that way can be a whole other matter in general, especially with Ravage. Ravage has a hard time staying in his disc mode half the time. So that's the Fall of Cybertron gang, and overall I do like them quite a bit. I am, again, more akin to the original G1 designs, and for those of you who are curious, yes, as I mentioned before, they did make a Blaster version of this, and they also had all of Blaster's cassette pals. I do believe that Blaster himself came with Steeljaw, who was a retool of Ravage. There are also retools of Rumble and Frenzy as Rewind and Eject. There was a ram horn that was kind of his own mold. And for Fifth Friend, they even actually did a Sundor, who is the seldom used bird cassette friend that Blaster has, and according to the lore, is still a Decepticon anyway, but I don't care. That was the reason that why, just kind of like a throwback here, when I did the Buzzsaw review back early last year, I actually got Toy Hack stuff to make him into Sundor. That was the entire reason I had gotten him. So that was just kind of that. Now, we do have one more figure that we're going to be looking at, and this is from the newest toy line, War for Cybertron Siege, which we have talked about on the show before with the Hound and Ironhide. Now, just as a bit of a disclaimer, this is not actually my figure. This was, I'm not going to say donated. No, a coworker of mine actually owns this. I technically picked it up for him on Amazon, and he paid me for it. We do that kind of thing because I got him into wanting to get Transformers again, and I just picked figures up for him on Amazon. He pays me for them. But this is actually my coworker's Soundwave, War for Cybertron Siege Soundwave, that he graciously lent to me for the purposes of this review. So yeah, rather than going for a car mode for a Cybertronian form, like in the video game there, he's actually kind of got like this sort of battle spaceship sort of look, which I can dig it. I mean, it's not the best mode I would have thought of for Soundwave. And as we all know, in the original G1 cartoon on Cybertron, he actually turned into a lamppost. And there's actually like a stealth third mode in this where you can turn him into the lamppost. We'll see later if I can remember how to do that. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and look at the alt mode and the robot mode. And the cassette door, there is a cassette door on the back here. But we'll get to the cassettes later. But yeah, just kind of a little brick ship with some guns on it. And that's, for a warship, that's really all you need. So, let's go ahead and transform into his robot mode, because I think his robot mode is a lot more... I think the transformation is kind of fun, for one thing, and the robot mode is a lot more interesting, in my opinion. So, we're going to start off by disconnecting these guns on the bottom, from each other, I should say, and kind of bringing them up like this. Then we're going to actually take the... Let me take these top gun parts off, because those are going to... these look familiar. Okay, then there's this sort of panel up here. Because these are kind of supposed to fold down like this, but there's a panel up here that... because this antenna is kind of in the way. And I need to... Oh. I'm looking at things the wrong way. I'm just going to keep this Ravage where he is, because I'm not picking him up every damn time. This actually disconnects like this. It comes down to make legs. And these panels come down like this. Obvious legs swap around to the front. And then there's these parts here, these panels that come down and then fold up, and the feet fold out, which is really, really a cool thing. I really like how they executed that. So now with all that in place, now this panel at the top can come up like that. This antenna can come down. Make sure that these are situated thusly, and then this will actually come back and reveal the head. Actually, let's take this little gun off as well. There we go. There's the head. Bring that up, close it up, and then this whole panel will rotate down if the hinge wants to cooperate with me, and just kind of attach to the back. And then the arms come up like so. And then just kind of take these guns, put them back like that, rotate the front forearm, bring the hands out. So, much better view of that. And there you go. And also these little gun things swoop forward. And then these little cannons that came off. Obviously we've got a shoulder cannon here. And this shoulder cannon can actually, this little peg pops down and you can actually aim it upward if you'd like as well. Whoops. So that's kind of a neat thing. I still like to put the whole, push it forward. And then this one, this little part actually pushes this out here, and it's the little chrome missile bit. And I actually forgot to mention on this, there used to be a spring-loaded thing. This used to be a spring-loaded gun in the original release, but they took the spring out for safety reasons. So you can still push the button. It's just the missile kind of sadly comes out like that. And he's got another gun for some reason. Well, for reasons we'll get to in a bit. And that is Siege Soundwave. And this is a very good figure. I was very surprised at just like, I don't know, just how well it came together, I suppose. I mean, obviously they had to just make up their own little alt mode for it, but the robot mode really comes together. It really does evoke the look of old Soundwave there, and it just does the part overall. Now, this doesn't fire or anything, but much like the other Siege figures that we've seen so far, all of these little weapons can combine together. I don't have my phone at the moment, so I don't know the official name for all these things. But you can basically take the smaller gun. This will do that. And then like this will connect like this. And then that connects like that. And I guess this is a gun. This looks really stupid, and I'm not going to dignify that with a response. With any other kind of response, I suppose. But that's the entire reason why he has that second gun there. Now, one of the cool things is, like, he has this little, his pointer finger out a little bit, kind of like he's holding it. He's ready to pull the trigger or something like that. But it can also double as, if you can line it up properly, getting ready to hit his eject button there. Because, indeed, he does have a cassette compartment. And he does have cassette pals. Now, he did not, Soundwave does not come with any cassette pals. These are actually sold separately as Micromasters. The Micromaster Soundwave Spy Squad or something like that. Spy Team. But it is Laserbeak and Ravage, as per normal, I suppose. And these do indeed fit into the cassette door. If I can... Well, if I can put them in the right way, Jesus. There we go. Now, unfortunately, unlike the G1 Soundwave that I own, you can't fit both in there. You can only fit in one at a time. But they still look neat in there. They still eject. They still come out. And they still transform as you might expect. I mean, you wouldn't want to pay $10 for a 2-pack if they didn't transform, I suppose. So let's Laserbeak transforms pretty much the same kind of way. His legs come out, or his legs come down, his wings come out. His head is kind of in the same place. It still folds out like this. And he actually has this kind of like a visor look over him rather than the eyes from before. But the little parts that were chrome bits that went in the little gun booster part, that actually folds out like this. And while it doesn't look like a booster or guns or anything like that, it does fill out the back there. And the cool thing with Laserbeak for Siege, however, unlike all of the Laserbeaks that we've seen up to this point, he actually has a place molded into Soundwave's forearm where he can perch up there. And that's something if I can get it to fit. There we go. Yeah. Ravage is a little bit more complicated. Let's see if I can remember this, because I've only done this a couple times, like a few days ago. So you basically take his legs out here, and he folds over. And these fold over as well. Just the joints are kind of a little tight. Where's his... Oh, yes, head's here. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry. This section actually folds folds down like that. Okay, that's why I remembered it being all lined up differently, because it was. And then if everything wants to cooperate, it will unfold. His head's kind of folded down, but there's not really a good way to grip it. Let me focus on that a little bit, if it's possible to. Because his face is kind of down in here. And that gray part is a... There it goes. It looks like a peg there. Because I think that these combine into... Like other Micromasters can combine into a weapon for him. But I really don't know. I didn't look that far ahead. But there's Ravage. He's even got the little guns are molded in. Again, I like Laserbeak a lot more than Ravage in this case. I'm fairly sure that there is a weapon mode for it, but I don't have the instructions handy, so I can't look that up. But in either case, that's our Soundwave special. We got 3 separate Soundwave figures. All of them are good. Some of them are better than others, but yeah. Of these 3, the only one that's really readily available is the Siege Soundwave, but I would still definitely recommend picking up Siege Soundwave and a Micromaster set if you can, because what is Soundwave without his cassettes? And there's also another Soundwave, not another Soundwave. I mean, there's a Sound Blaster that's out. But that was like a limited release thing. So there's a Sound Blaster version of Siege Soundwave that's out. But there is another cassette Micromaster set coming out for Siege, which has Ratbat and they call him Rumble, but Frenzy. But yeah, that's Soundwave, and yeah, if you can find any of these, go ahead and pick them up if you can. But yeah, that's going to do it for me for this video here. So yeah, I've been Radio Goji, and I'll be here next time. Join me, won't you?